Well, the media today fixated on General Petraeus' sex scandal that has led to his resignation as head of the CIA. And it was an FBI investigation that led to the downfall of the renowned general. These are the players involved in the messy conflict. Florida socialite Jill Kelly, also a close friend of Petraeus, alerted the FBI that she was getting harassing emails. This prompted an FBI investigation. And as they traced the emails, it led them to discover the affair between Petraeus and his biographer, Paula Broadwell. And the scandal doesn't end there. The FBI investigation reportedly brings to light inappropriate emails between Kelly and General John Allen, the top commander in Afghanistan. Now, all of this information is public thanks to an FBI investigation and leaks to legislators and the media. Now we're seeing the fuller picture. The FBI agents looked through thousands of pages of emails and computer documents of the players in this scandal, despite no official crime ever taking place. This has some asking, did the FBI overstep its boundaries in spying on those involved? And beyond this case, is it too easy for the FBI to snoop on people and poke through their online communications? To discuss, Trevor Aronson, the author of the book you see there, The Terror Factory, Inside the FBI's Manufactured War on Terrorism. Hi there, Trevor. This case just keeps getting more interesting, and some people are theorizing that this investigation stems from territorial issues between the CIA and the FBI. And I know that you've done a lot of research on this topic. Can you talk about historically how these two agencies have interacted and whether that relationship has affected this investigation?
You know, the FBI and the CIA have always been in competition with each other, and that dates back to the founding of the CIA from a military branch. Back when J. Edgar Hoover became the acting director of what became the FBI, he was adamantly against the creation of a central intelligence agency. And then since then, there have been, continued kind of territorial scuffles between the CIA and the FBI, and just a wholesale mistrust. That became, even worse during the Cold War, when Aldrich Ames, who was a CIA agent, ended up, giving information to the Soviet Union and, leaked a bunch of information to the Russians. At the same time, later, an FBI agent, Robert Hanssen, did the same. He was providing information to the Soviet Union as a double agent. And that contributed to this mistrust between the two agencies that ultimately led to 9/11. And, at the time of 9/11, there wasn't a lot of information sharing between the two agencies, because they just didn't trust each other as a result of their history. And so we've seen this over and over where, it's hard to say what role it played in this particular case, but there have always been these conflicts between the CIA and these turf battles between the CIA and the FBI.
That's interesting. To what extent do you think that possible strained relationship could have impacted this case?
It's certainly highly possible. I mean, if you look at what's happened between the FBI and the CIA since 9/11, it's always been this strained, if not arranged, marriage. For example, in 2003, after 9/11, George W. Bush tried to, solve or get rid of what's called the seam, which is that separation between the CIA and the FBI. And, through that, he ended up asking, FBI agents to spend time at the CIA agents to spend time at the FBI to understand each other's culture and provide information and share information more readily. But FBI agents have always seen CIA agents with skepticism, and the same goes for the CIA of FBI agents. And when the cultures are such that the FBI views the CIA as a bunch of wine-sipping blue bloods who don't really understand how to fight crime, whereas the CIA views the FBI as a bunch of accountants and lawyers who went to middle American colleges and don't understand the realities of combating terrorism and espionage. And what this ultimately creates is this outright competition. And I think it's an interesting question of why the FBI would have chosen to investigate so aggressively what is essentially a cyber stalking case. I think the information that's available suggests two things. One, that they were interested in digging up information because it involved Petraeus to protect him, or they were interested in digging up information involving Petraeus because of some kind of internal rivalries between the CIA and the FBI.
And it certainly raises a lot of questions, and people are asking, are looking at how extensive this investigation is. thousands of emails being sifted through by the FBI. Trevor, do you think that this is an example of how easy it is for the FBI to look through a person's emails and computer records, even if maybe there's not criminal activity going on?
Absolutely. Since Obama took office, there's been an explosion of what are called, warrantless electronic surveillance, where without a judge's orders, the FBI can look at internet activity, including email, as part of the investigation of a crime. And there's been an explosion of this. And so I think everyone should take from this case an understanding that this is possible now more than ever, that the FBI and the CIA, that the FBI would look into, internet files, emails as part of an investigation. And that investigation could be very preliminary. Like in this case, the investigation was just a complaint that, this woman in Tampa was receiving harassing emails, and the FBI used that as a means to ultimately look into her Gmail account, find information, and that, read those emails, and that those emails ultimately led to, the establishment of a relationship between her and Petraeus, as well as now some sort of email exchange and some sort of relationship with General Allen.
So reports so far show that the emails in this case, Kelly, she says that they were harassing, but so far they haven't proven to be violent or threatening. So this being the case, should it be a criminal investigation? And is the FBI justified in treating it like it's a criminal investigation?
I can't speak to whether, what would reach the threshold for a criminal investigation, whether it had to be outright threats or outright violent threats. But, what you can say pretty specifically is that the FBI really isn't in the business of investigating many, cyber stalking cases involving jilted ex-lovers of some kind. And that just, if you look at the type of cases the FBI pursues, these aren't very common. So I think that raises questions about whether there was some special treatment here. Certainly Jill Kelly, as reports have shown, had a personal relationship with an FBI agent, and that may have helped move that complaint along within the Bureau faster than if someone who didn't know anyone at the FBI just made a complaint. But, when you look at these numbers, they're just the number of prosecutions and the number of investigations. It is unusual to see the FBI spend this much time and this much effort on what is essentially a cyber stalking case or cyber harassing case. And certainly no evidence has suggested that it became anything more than a series of harassing emails.
That's right. It kind of raises the question, what kind of discretion do FBI agents use in choosing which cases to pursue? I mean, in this case, we have the Florida woman, a socialite, claimed to be receiving the harassing emails. She contacted a friend at the FBI to look into it. So obviously it's her inside connections or it points to her having these inside connections and therefore receiving this treatment. But and then on the other hand, you have people saying, you know what, I'm legitimately being harassed. I feel like my life is in danger, and it's hard to get the FBI to really take the time and investigate it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to believe that the FBI would have pursued a case like this had it not involved General Petraeus. And I'm sure the woman who made the complaint would have told the FBI agent at that time that this involved General Petraeus. What's interesting to find out, and we'll probably find out much later, is whether the FBI really was pursuing this in the hopes of getting a criminal investigation, or whether they were just kind of stooping to a certain extent. The FBI agent from Tampa, according to reports, was concerned that the FBI was going to sweep this under the rug, and ended up leaking this information to a congressman in Washington, who later turned that over to Eric Cantor. I think the question for a case like this is, what was the propriety of the FBI to investigate this as fully as it did, especially if no criminal charges result? Here we have essentially a CIA director who's resigned, and what is a rather sordid affair in Washington politics. But if no criminal cases come of this, I think there's a real question of what the FBI's role was and why they chose to investigate this so aggressively if they couldn't prove any sort of criminal activity.
All right, a lot of questions and a lot of the case just keeps getting more complicated and more twisted. I guess we're going to find out more in the coming days. But appreciate you, Trevor, for weighing in on this. That was Trevor Aronson, author of The Terror Factory: Inside the FBI's Manufactured War on Terrorism.